this class looked to main culture would have been compromised, especially being that there were more in numbers coming. And again, this is why they attempted to separate themselves from the Negro. Pointless to get the Negro students to behave like ladies and gentlemen, because at this point, the Negro was made in America, right? From the language, the food, the thinking.
What is the racial wealth gap and why is everyone talking about it? The racial wealth gap is a measure of wealth. The gap traces back to the 1860s. Alabama's first black-owned and black-operated bank grew significantly under his guidance.
As we get closer to the end, I'm going to be doing more of these messages.
Welcome to the Daily Read, and I am your host, Marcus Gentry. Today we're going to be talking about a very touchy subject, and it's about the Shanquella Robinson murder. That's basically, she was murdered on camera. But I'm also going to talk about how, when I look into the pattern, and this is not some tarot reading like you see a lot of people doing now. This is something I've been able to do all my life. Read the patterns in people and places and things. And I can tell you from experience that this whole bourgeoisie group that went down there to Mexico and basically murdered this girl, they are a part of a larger problem that we minorities in this country is having. It's no longer about white versus black. I had to come to terms with that after seeing that they really don't have to do anything because they have a certain amount of minorities in this country that'll do the job for them. This is a story about wealth inequality and how America has given a certain amount of people in our country access to wealth. I say anywhere between 10 to 15% of minorities was given or is giving access to wealth. This is going to be a deep subject. I want you guys to really understand how deep this shit is going to get. Even if you got to go back and replay this video, understand this is not going to be no playing of games here. This is not no conspiracy theory. We were once slaves in this country. They released us, but they're not going to release us without safeguards. Part of those safeguards is to ensure that blacks don't rise up and overpower and take over this country. Part of that safeguard is putting these gatekeepers in place. Part of that safeguard is limiting the amount of blacks that can get wealth in this country. And when it first happened, we had our doctors, black lawyers that really cared about the community. As far as I'm gonna go to Susie May, I don't have enough money to take my baby to the dentist over on white side of town, plus the whites don't want us over there. So those were the leaders in the community, the black dentist, the black banker, the black they were the leaders in our community, and they took care of the people in the community. They were also not just giving wealth and access, but they were also given access to sororities, fraternities. You can't come over here and be a part of our sorority. You can't come over here and be a part of our fraternity. You can't come over here and be a part of our Masonic lodge, but we'll let you start your own. Over time, there became a divide. And we're going to talk about that and how this leads into the Shanquella Robinson murder, because I've been looking at the patterns on this stuff. As I was saying, most of these people really cared in the 50s, the 40s, the 1890s about the black community, because they were still a part of it, even though they were allowed to access academia to study psychiatry, to study to be a doctor. The rest of us had to work in the fields, pick cotton still. Even though we were free, factory work, cotton gins was our jobs. But they allowed 5, 10 to maybe 15% of the black population to incorporate themselves into normal society where they can become more than just a cotton picker. And in turn, those few came back to their communities and blessed their communities. All of that's changed now. Everybody talks about Black Wall Street. Everyone talks about how there was a black bank in Alabama. Everybody talking about how they burned out that black town in Florida. The reason why is because it wasn't just because of racism. They couldn't allow minorities to hold so much power. You got to understand how this is working. Later on in the show, they're going to explain to you that black wealth has not increased in almost 20 to 30 years. The same black wealth is recycling through the same people. And if it's not the same people, once they gone, they be replaced by another football player with a different last name. But it's always of maintaining a number, of a specific number of black wealth. And what has happened is the reason why there's a war going on between us minorities is because instead of those blacks that was able to get black wealth, instead of those blacks that was able to become doctors and come back to the community and heal the black sick, dentists come back to their community and open up a dentistry. Instead of all of that taking place, now the black wealth has separated themselves. We don't want you around. You can't even have a woman unless it's our scraps. After we done put 2 or 3 kids in them, gave them all kinds of dramatic experiences, and now you got to deal with the whore. We don't want her no more. This is what's going on in the black community now. It's the same wealth being recycled around the same people. And most of these people are in sororities, fraternities, or Masonic organizations. And if you fall up under a certain amount of money, you're considered a peasant to these people. This is why there's a black a war going on, and most of you guys are not even aware of it. You can't even see the signs. You see, the women in our black community picked up on it a long time ago. That's why you hear a lot of black women say, I don't mess with no brokey. You hear a lot of black women say 666, 6 figures, 6 foot tall, and 6 inches or a 6-pack. They saying that for a reason. These women have already caught on in the black community where the power is. Anything less than $100,000 a year, you're considered a peasant. And not to the white people. They don't give a shit. As long as you guys don't overpower us, as long as you guys don't generate more wealth than us, we don't give a shit what you do to your own kind. They gave us a 5 to 15% of black wealth. That's it. You start building black Wall Streets, you start building whole communities, we're going to tear that shit down and call it a gang culture. A lot of these dudes ain't even with gangs anymore. That shit been played out in the 80s and 90s. Most of these black men are working men in factories. They might sell a little dope, they might sell a little weed, but the vast majority of black men don't even fool around with gangs anymore. You are in a war, and the other side is trying to tell you, the poor black man that works in a factory making $60,000 a year or $50,000 a year, the bourgeoisie black echelon of society is telling you, you're a peasant. I can treat your wife like a whore. I can treat your girlfriend like a whore. I can do whatever I want to you because the white upper class society gave us a certain amount of wealth, and you're not included if you don't kiss our ass or unless one of you bitches suck our dicks. And if you ain't doing that, we don't want you around. You like a burden to us. And some of y'all don't get it. We are in a war with some of these people and not with white people. 80% of the women in this country that are black chase 15% of the men. Some of y'all gonna say, well, they got a right to do whoever they want to be with. That's true. Nobody's saying that. It's not. It's true. But there's a reason why they're doing that. They already understood where the power is. The black wealth is in 15% of black hands, and it can't get no higher. You got to go through us, the gatekeepers, to get that wealth. And we're going to shit on you, stomp on you, make you jump through all kinds of hoops and hurdles that the white people, and then if you get too out of hand and get the pushing back, they're going to go get the white people. Now you understand how this shit works? I looked at that whole Shanquella Robinson situation, and I can tell these young black, I call them young, but they in their late 20s or early 30s. These are grown-ups that own businesses. I'm willing to guarantee you every single one of these people connected to this murder is a part of an organization, legal, a sorority, or a fraternity. Almost willing to guarantee you. For some reason, she fell out with these people. That level of hatred for this girl to beat her like that and record it and then leave her dead body down there cannot be hidden. She obviously was one of the bourgeoisie crowd with them. She had to have been stuck up to the point where you don't recognize the danger you in with these people, because people that hate you that bad cannot hide it. People that dislike you that bad cannot hide it. It shows up in the things they do. It shows up in the things they say around your presence. Even the things that they don't say when they get quiet around you. It shows up. Whether it's your family or whether it's some niggas on the streets. All of these people were probably a part of the same sororities. They went to the same colleges, or they done got a hold of some kind of organization, legal, that's got protection with the white counterparts, which has protection by the police. And then I got this girl down there, murdered her, left her, came back and posted the video. And all of these people are walking around scot-free. It's bonkers. Some of y'all don't even realize And I'm talking to you, the average black working man, to get up, put on his boots, that's not a part of none of these organizations, that maybe has a girl work at Walmart, you work at Shoney's, or you work as a concrete construction worker, and you put on your boots and go to work every day. It's not about them being doctors and lawyers and medical staff no more. That was the upper echelon of black society back then. And they came back. They joined them organizations, but they came back into the community, and the community loved and respected them. But now, these people are nothing but a bunch of football players, NFL players, rappers, multimillionaires. They just snatching even gang leaders, not the gang members, but the gang leaders, because the gang leaders got money. That's all these people are. And then they lord over other blacks as if they're royalty, and they're not. This is what the war is coming to between us blacks. Red Pill did a good job, because Red Pill started with showing black men and white men that these women in America are focusing on the wealth of the country. They're not focusing on marriage. They're not focusing on raising their children, because in their minds they're associating wealth with protection and providing. But raising kids is more than that. But what y'all failing to realize is there's only about 5 to 15% of the wealth in this country in black hands. That's what they gave us. You got to work with that. Anything more than that, they'll burn it down. That's why when you see a Herschel Walker retire, they bring another Herschel Walker up to take the money that he was getting. Whenever you see a famous black actor like Denzel Washington retire, another one steps up and take his place. There will always be a certain amount of black wealth in this country. And you either got to kiss the ass of the connected to get to it, or suck the dick of a connected to get to it. And these women found out before us men. They found this shit out about 40 years ago. That's why you see all these bimbo bops out here having 2 or 3 different kids by 2 or 3 different men. And then getting 14,000 in child support from one, 20,000 in child support from the other. These women ain't even that, they ain't even that fine. They got nice thighs and ass. But when you really look at them, like the woman that said something on the air about, I wouldn't date a bus driver, but I would date the bus owner. I looked at this broad like, you ain't even a 10. You got bags under your eyes covered up with makeup. Ayala, the woman who was interviewing her, was stunned. And she meant every word of it. You are considered a peasant to some of these people. And that's what a war sparks at right there. Because a lot of us are telling you, the want to be upper class or want to be royalty of black society, we don't get 2 fucks about your riches. You was a slave in this country just like me. Fuck you. And your bitch. Now let's get into this show, because this is going to be a good show that you can rewind and really start paying attention to your surroundings, especially you black men that make under 100,000 a year. You are an enemy to some of these people, even if you don't commit no crimes out here. I'm gonna give you some examples before we start the show. A wealthy black man Been in his community selling suits for 20 years. His son grew up wealthy. His son got a Range Rover, runs over your daughter. He uses his sorority, fraternity connections, Masonic connections to keep his son out of jail. Fuck your kid. You're a peasant to him. I'll give you another example. I use my money for your charity. You want to give out toys for tots. Come to find out, you taking some of these toys and giving them to your mistress because she got 4 kids. You got a wife. You just fucking the bitch. So now you done took toys from Toys of Tots over there to your mistress. I'm going to give you another example of how black society has turned in on each other. I give my money to charity. I say, hey, we finna have a barbecue. We finna invite all the blacks out and you have a barbecue at the park. Oh, that's a good idea. Show black unity. I get there to the barbecue. All I'm seeing is upper class blacks shaking their ass to in the summertime. They line dancing. All of these bourgeoisie upper class blacks out here at the barbecue. But what about John down the street who asks me for 20 cents every time I see him? How come none of y'all took him a plate or invited him to the park to give him a free plate? What about that girl that got 6 kids in the projects by 4, 5 different baby daddies? She don't even know how she gonna feed her kid. How come y'all didn't invite her kids to the cookout? But you took my charity money for this cookout, and all I'm seeing is sorority sisters, Eastern Stars, women walking around with glittering lights on their trucks and cars. Get the fuck out of here. But nobody took John a plate. That old black man been standing in front of that store for 2 years. Every time he see a brother, hey man, let me get $2. I'm hungry. I go in there and buy him a pizza. I know he want a beer. Buy him a beer, buy him a pizza. And he immediately goes on the side of the building, scoff down this pizza and drink that beer. And then beg somebody to wash their car. You didn't invite him to the barbecue. You didn't say, hey John, man, come on over here and get you a plate. It's a war going on in black society between the haves and the have-nots. And it ain't got shit to do with the white people. They set it in motion. Don't get it twisted. They set this shit in motion. But now that they done set it in motion, the black puppets that they got puppeteering everything have taken it over. And if you don't have and this ain't me crying about getting up off my ass and working. I'm not talking about no bum ass dudes. I'm talking about real hard-working black men who put their boots on every day but make under $60,000 a year. The average income for a black male is about $55,000 to $65,000 a year. Those guys are considered beneath 80% of the women and most of you motherfuckers out here. I'm in the middle of my show. What's up, baby?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, good. I'm in there.
Okay, good, good.
It's nice too.
Okay. Let me finish doing my show. Give me about 40 minutes. I'm gonna call you right back.
Okay.
All right. That's my baby. She got her an apartment in DC. Good. Back to what I was saying. You got people out here in the black community that have separated themselves from us, the average person. And then you got 80% of the women, even the ugly ones, even the broke ones. You can walk into a Walmart You could walk into a damn Walmart and see a halfway cute female and be like, hey, how you doing? What's your name? You don't even approach her all foul. I don't fuck with no brokies. Bitch, you work at Walmart. Are you joking right now? Because they understood 40 years ago when we were still out here in La La Land where the power is and where the power was going. Because what you should do as a black male that makes under $100,000, keep your money to yourself and your family, your kids. Don't give to these people. Don't give to these women that got 4-5 babies by 4-5 different men. What that does is it makes all of them go back to the same 15% of men who feel like they should have all the black wealth in this country. It makes those women go back to them. It makes those society people go back to them. Don't come to me asking for my little money because that's what you called it. You call my money chump change. So I'm going to take my chump change and get my passport and I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to create my own black community somewhere else. Away from all of this. Now let's get into the show because this is going to be some deep shit. This is some deep shit. It's going to mess some of you up.
Read your source for news, politics, sports, and all things trending. Here's your host, Marcus Gentry.
Now, how is it that the members of the black community, such as the celebrities, actors, and the entertainers from the lowest rung of the ladder, came to be the most influential members to the black community? Why are they there, and what caused them to get to that spot? The explanation comes from professor and sociologist Dr. E. Fraser Franklin in his 1957 book titled Black Bourgeoisie. And as we go through this explanation, I want you to listen very carefully because what we're going to go on is a journey. And in this journey, we're going to deal with some backstory on Black American culture. And all this is going to lead us to our final destination of answering this question. But I need you to go through the full journey in order to get the understanding. And so once you understand this history, then it'll no longer be a mystery. And so let's go in here to page 113, where it says this. There have been only two really vital cultural traditions in the social history of the Negro in the United States. One being the genteel tradition of the small group of mulattoes who assimilated the morals and manners of the slave-holding aristocracy. So the first of the two notable black traditions was the genteel tradition, which placed high value on conventional family life, sexual purity, manners, education, and so forth. And this tradition was learned from the slave-holding aristocracy, or the nobility, or the elite, or the upper class slaveholders, right? And so this small group of mostly mulattoes took their culture from these people. And keep in mind that it says small because most of the blacks didn't have this culture. So this...
Now remember what I said. When they freed us, they already had their pick of blacks who was going to get 10 to 15% of the black wealth. Everybody else is just a worker. You're a peasant. You pay taxes and that's it. You can't climb that social ladder, and if you do, you got to go through one of us. And to go through one of us, you got to do what we tell you to do, or dress like us, or be like us, or talk like us. Which is a bunch of crock of shit. Let's continue on.
Was one of the cultures. Let's continue. And the other, the culture of the black folk who gave the world the spirituals, which is the culture which developed as an adaptation to the slave environment. The first small group had the mind of the slaveholder, and the second mass group had the mind of the slave. Right? Let's continue. The genteel tradition, or the one that came from this aristocracy, flourished especially in such large communities of free mulattoes as those in Charleston, South Carolina, and New Orleans, Louisiana. It was maintained by those mulatto families that had acquired as part of their family traditions the patterns of behavior which were associated with the ideal of the Southern lady and Southern gentleman. Some families took pride in the fact that a mulatto ancestor could not be distinguished in his physical appearance, dress, manners, and speech from his white half-brother.
Now, think about how a lot of black women go out and buy these long wigs to look more like mulatto, more like white women. Let's continue on.
And they had these thoughts because they had bought into the idea that the traditional European features were superior to all the others. And so, in other words, they believed this to be true. Let's continue. As a rule, these families formed a closed circle from which were excluded all who could not boast of similar ancestry and did not conform to the same standards of morals and manners. I'm
going to stop there right there real quick. What he's saying is they closed a small closed group. What does that group mean? Sororities, fraternities, even the Masons and the Eastern Stars. What was those groups given to them by? They were given to them by white people. So they established what they consider what blacks are supposed to be. Let's continue on.
Exceedingly self-conscious of their culture, which consisted of the enjoyment of English and, in Louisiana, French classical literature and music. Sometimes they maintained literary societies in which they could enjoy and foster their culture. Many of these families migrated before the Civil War to the north, where they formed a small upper class that boasted of its genteel traditions. After the Civil War, the free mulatto class continued to hold itself aloof from the masses of freedmen. The Civil War
keep themselves aloof, separated themselves from regular black people, and it continued on. Let's continue.
Ended in 1865, and by that time, the masses of blacks were no longer legally enslaved, and the Negroes with the genteel culture, they were trying to distance themselves from the masses because at that point they were culturally different people. Let's continue. In Louisiana, the hostility of some members of this class to the newly emancipated blacks was so great that they opposed giving political rights to the freedmen. But generally, the free mulatto class and its descendants assumed as far as possible positions of leadership among the Negro masses. They did not break down the traditional barriers to easy social intercourse and marriage. Even in their religious affiliations, the descendants of the free mulattoes held aloof from the Negro masses. They generally affiliated with the Episcopal, Congregational, Presbyterian, and Catholic churches, while the Negro masses, as we have seen, were affiliated with the Baptist and Methodist churches. The descendants of the free mulattoes became, after the Civil War, the core of a small class which undertook to maintain the American pattern of family life and conventional sex mores. So the offspring of this class looked to maintain the values that they had developed over the years. And this was one of the reasons that they kept a distance from the Negro masses. Because if they would have started mingling closely with the Negro masses, then their culture would have been compromised. Especially being that there were more in numbers coming from the Negro masses who were the carriers of the slave mindset. Let's continue. In some small communities in the South, a single family with this social and cultural background would live in complete isolation rather than associate with the masses of Negroes. And why was that? For the reason we just went over. In their quiet, obscure lives, they expressed often their contempt for the black upstarts who, in their view, and often in fact, possessed neither morals nor manners. And again, this is why they attempted to separate themselves from the Negro masses, who had a very different set of morals and manners. And this is how people have always separated themselves before the European colonizer came along and started lumping people into these very large groups like black, white, Asian, and so forth, right? Groups that never initially agreed to be lumped in there together. Let's continue. The attitudes of those who came to terms with the successful members of the rising black masses was expressed by a young mulatto college student who was a descendant of a prominent free mulatto family. When asked how she felt when a big, ill-mannered Negro male student addressed her rudely and tossed her about, replied, "Well, since I've got to live with these N-words, I might as well act like one." So now at this point, we have members of the Negro masses who were attending school with other members from the mulatto class, and there was conflict. The mulatto class was stuck with the Negro mass, and we can see the frustration coming from this student here. And I'm pretty sure the Negro masses didn't like them either, right? Let's continue. On the whole, the tradition of the gentleman has ceased to have influence on either the manners or morals of the Negro community. The tradition they had stopped having influence on the Negro community, and later on we're going to find out exactly why, because it ties into the main topic of this video. In the Negro colleges, it is futile for teachers to exhort the students to behave like ladies and gentlemen. Futile means pointless. And why was it futile or pointless to get the Negro students to behave like ladies and gentlemen? Because at this point, the Negro masses had begun to take over. And the culture that they carried was nothing like the genteel culture that some of the mulatto class had. So from here, let's understand some of the background coming from the Negro masses and the culture that they had developed. The folk culture of the American Negro developed out of his experiences on American soil. Whatever element of African culture might have survived enslavement.
He's going to go into this yada, yada, yada about African slave. Fuck that. Let me tell you the real. The mulattoes that look almost white, that could pass for white, they enjoyed the luxury of free living. They enjoyed the luxury of going to college and learning how to read. The reason why these classes of people didn't get along, because they were beat across their backs. They saw their brother and sisters get hung in trees. A lot of these mulattoes never even saw that. But they was expected to be the leaders of black culture. But they couldn't relate. That's how you got today certain blacks that got wealth can't relate to poor people. So they treat them like trash. Okay, you've been having wealth for about 20 years. You got an Audi, a BMW, a Range Rover. You got a 3, 4, 5 bedroom house. Okay, cool. But do you really understand how a young man who only has 2 or 3 pair of pants to go to school in, 1 pair of sneakers that's worn out on the bottom when he goes to school? Can you relate to that? Most of you can't. Let's continue on.
Came to merge with the Negro's experience in the new environment and lost their original meaning. The Negro was made in America, right? From the language, the food, the thinking, the dancing, the songs, right? And even the physical makeup being a mixture of different people. And Dr. Fraser says that anything that survived that would have come from Africa was merged into this new environment and it lost its original meaning, right? So a new culture and a new people were created from this completely different experience. Let's continue. From the beginning, the Negro had to learn the language of his masters, and there was no chance to preserve African languages except in some isolated areas, as for example, along the coast of South Carolina and Georgia and the neighboring islands. The character which the Negro family acquired under the system of slavery was due to the exigencies of servitude rather than surviving African patterns of behavior. Exigencies meaning what was needed in a situation. So the character of the Negro family, which included the woman heading the house, was needed under the system of American slavery, and it was not something that was of African origin. In a situation where no legal recognition of family existed, the dominant position of the woman in the Negro family was due to the concession that had to be made to the needs of the children as well as to attachment of mothers to their offspring.
Because the men were getting beaten, hung, sent out to the fields to work themselves to death. The Negroes that were free before the other Negroes were free, which are the mulattoes, already had a set of freedoms. They already was accepted amongst some whites. So when they freed the rest of the blacks, the mulattoes tried to separate themselves. Like, we ain't like them. You know, they servers, they peasants. Let's keep going.
Even in the matter of religion, there are no evidences of African survivals as in the West Indies and in Brazil.
There's concern about a racial wealth gap.
The racial wealth gap is stark.
The racial wealth gap is tremendous.
The gap.
Now we finna move up in the years of how this war started between blacks. We got to the slavery part and the end of slavery with the separation of our peoples, where the haves and have-nots has always been going on. Now we finna bring it up to current date. You see, the wealth gap between whites and blacks is significant because that wealth gap is always going to be there unless somebody changes it. The wealth gap is going to always be there because they don't want us to overtake them. They're the ones who conquered this country and brought us here. Let's continue on.
Between white and black America.
What is the racial wealth gap and why is everyone talking about it? The racial wealth gap is a measure of wealth inequality between racial groups in the U.S. Here's a prime example. Black families make up 14% of the population but own only 5% of American wealth, while white households make up 65% of the population but control 80%.
Remember what I said about they only give blacks, Asians, Hispanics about 5 to 15% of the wealth. Remember I told you that. 65%, and they gave blacks 5%. So that means they're cutting other 5% off of the other continent countries that send people here, giving them 5% too. As long as you don't have a majority share, this shit is like a business. When you have majority shares, that's why they really burnt down Black Wall Street. That's why whenever any black communities get too powerful, they burn it down. They lock them up as racketeering. They do anything they can do, even if it's bringing up false shit. But see, now they got something different. We're going to allow you few blacks to get this wealth. But it's only going to be who you pick. We're not going to get involved in that. But it's only this much. The rest of them going to have to be slaves again. Even though it's not considered slavery, but you're a slave to the system of America. They turned America into one giant plantation. So now these few blacks took that and ran with it. We got the power over other blacks. We get to choose who we want in the upper echelon of black power. And some of you bitches are not morally correct. Stop lying. Some of you people are flat out criminals. Stop lying. Let's continue on.
Emancipation Proclamation, which led to freedom for almost 4 million Black Americans. By 1860, their labor accounted for 60% of U.S. exports, $200 million a year. But Black Americans received nothing. No land, no money. Without any money or land, how could newly free Black Americans create wealth? One way could have been the banking system. Alexander Hamilton, the father of American banking, said that banking is how wealth is created. But Black Americans were overwhelmingly excluded from using banks. So what happens when a community is barred from the mainstream banking system? They create their own.
They create their own, but it's not owned by all of us. Y'all get it now? Do you really get it? They put that little bit of power in the hands of a few mulattoes and blacks that was a part of their opposite sororities and fraternities. And they became the leaders in our black neighborhoods. And at first it was okay, because at least my daughter who gets sick, I can take her to a black doctor. He's one of the leaders in our neighborhoods. But now as time progressed, it's the football players, the basketball players, the hockey players, the soccer players, the singers, the rappers. And them folks can't they can't mend a leg. They can't mix down poultices and fix what ails you. They don't give two shits about you. These are the people that the organizations above us is plucking out of society now. They're going to get the ex-football player that made $20 million in last year, because it's all about money. It's not about uplifting the black race. It's about the have and the have-nots. Let's continue on.
Black banks are supposed to close the racial wealth gap. So what happened? For almost 200 years, there have been three unique barriers that have kept Black America from generating the wealth the Black community intended: discriminatory lending, housing discrimination, and economic segregation. First,
before we get into that, I want to get into how this ties into the Shanquella situation. Shanquella Robinson situation. I want to get into that. Because like I said, I see the patterns in a lot of things. Some people might say that's your cancer intuition showing. Whatever it is. You see all of these sororities and fraternities up here that's on this picture that you looking at. All of these fraternities and sororities was given to black people. They didn't invent these on their own. It was given to them by white people. Because you can't be, we have our trust in you, Thomas, but you just can't be a part of our lodge. You can't be a part of our sorority. You can't be a part of our fraternities. So we're just going to give you your own. Since you guys pretty much are the leaders of your community, we're going to give you your own. And at first, all of these were doctors, lawyers, dentists, people that could be looked at as leaders in the community because they really aided the community in keeping it well. But now today, when you see all of this right here, you're seeing $20 million a year football players, $20 million a year basketball players, a rapper who done made a 20,000 a feature. That's what you see now when you look at these sororities, fraternities. I just gave you a quick synopsis of what happened. I gave these people my charity money, to feed the blacks at the park. I'm thinking we finna see a bunch of homeless people come in here, get some of this cobbler, get some of these baked beans and meat, get some of these ribs. All I'm seeing is people that got money, jigging around and dancing, doing line dances. In the two things go right in the summertime. That's all I saw. What was the homeless guy down the street? How come y'all didn't give him a plate? Go get him. Because it's not about black people coming up to create a Black Wall Street anymore. It's not about that. Because they already understand there's only a certain amount of black wealth that can be had. Again, our women found this out about 40 years ago. That's why you started seeing the change in how our women used to have 8, 9 kids by one man. And he was a factory worker and she was a nurse. And they took care of them kids. Even though they didn't have a lot. They ate pork and beans at night. That shit went from that to I got 3 baby daddies and all 3 of them give me $12,000 a month for all 3 of my kids. These women done found out where the wealth is. They found it out a long time ago. There is no more Black Wall Street coming. Because all of these people are gatekeepers now. We're going to have the black wealth, claim that it's for all the black people, but really it's for us. And those peasants, we're going to keep them from rising above anything unless they come through us. You a goddamn lie. Not me and my people. And this is where the war starts. If I want to wear a hoodie and Timberland boots and jeans, I can. I don't have to go and get no damn hush puppies. No polo shirt. I don't have to dress like you. I don't have to have the mannerisms you got. As long as I'm out here not committing crimes. Get the fuck out of here. It's a war going on and a lot of you are sleeping. Some of you have even blamed the white people. I even did it. Before I started really paying attention. Them people ain't even got to even involve themselves in it because they got these puppet masters to handle the business for them. Let's continue on.
And as we get closer to the end, I'm going to be doing more of these messages. I do these kind of messages because I don't want you to miss God. These are our gospel artists that are a part of these organizations. They're doing the signage and all of that. And the reason the Lord spoke to me and told me the reason that they are pledging, some of them 50 pledges. Now, how you going over at 50? What have you been doing for 49 years? But they're becoming, because the fraternities and sororities are suffering so much, one, because college attendance is low. Negro attendance is even lower. Now, I'm serious, especially for fraternities. Ain't many brothers, so they need members. Why do they need members?
Because of the money. Because of the money. You black men that make under $100,000 a year, you taking scraps. You taking scrap jobs. You taking scrap women that got kids by some of these people. They're throwaways. And they feel like since you a peasant, you got to deal with this while we enjoy the riches of black community that the white people gave us, which is only like 5 to 15%. You taking scraps. Every time you lay down with a motherfucker that got 3 kids by 3 different baby daddies, you took somebody's scraps. I took the scraps. Every time a wealthy dude say some crazy shit like nigga stay in your lane, you poor ass nigga, you taking scraps. You stick your middle finger and say, man, fuck you. We were all slaves in this country, bitch ass nigga. Fuck off. Who cares if you got a private jet? I'm aware of what's going on around me. Some of y'all are sleeping.
The love of money is what? root of all evil. There's a reason why I said you can't serve God and the God of money, because it's the money that